Hey ZeroX Research listeners, Boccacio's at DAS London this week, and this episode features his conversations with Paul, founder of Plasma, and Guy Young, founder of Ethena, recorded live from DAS London. Enjoy! A quick shout out to today's sponsor, Katana. We'll hear more from Katana later in today's episode.
Nothing said on ZeroX Research is a recommendation to buy or sell securities or tokens. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and any views expressed by anyone on the show are solely our opinions, not financial advice. Boccaccio, Ryan, and our guests may hold positions in the companies, funds, or projects discussed. What's up, guys? Welcome back to ZeroX Research, live from the Digital Asset Summit in London. Today I'm joined by Paul from Plasma. Paul, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. You must have had probably the busiest 3 weeks out of anybody in this venue right now. How's it been?
I'm not sure that's true. I think there's a lot of very busy people here, but
Yeah.
no, it's been busy. I mean, leading into launch and then post launch, it's been busy.
How would you say it went? Are you happy with what you guys have accomplished so far?
Yes, I mean, I think we the launch went incredibly well, and I mean, for us, kind of getting USDT flow specifically, and in particular, kind of getting the exchange to exchange or USDT flow, and really kind of starting to build a massive stablecoin ecosystem. I think that went incredibly well, and especially on the kind of just seeing the scale of capital that is being moved. That's been incredibly cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have those data dashboards and we're averaging between 4 and 6 billion in transfer volume a day, which is incredible. And so very happy about that. I mean, market has been very volatile,
Yeah.
That obviously is kind of the other side of that. But we have a lot of work ahead of us.
Very good. Yeah, it's a bit insane how much USDT you guys managed to attract onto the chain. Your original thesis was that you were going to be overthrowing Tron, or I guess fighting against Tron. But it seems like you actually took over a lot of capital from Ethereum as well. Just how has that experience been? How do you keep all of these new DeFi users happy coming into Plasma?
Yeah, it's a complex question. I think in the end, it's more about just winning against Tron. I think stablecoins have this incredibly kind of expanding pie, and Tron obviously has a very good chunk of that. I do think the kind of net new dollar coming into kind of the stablecoin economy overwhelmingly doesn't choose Tron, and our job is to make sure that the net marginal kind of inflow chooses Plasma, and that's something we're very focused on. I think on the DeFi, you do need very deep stablecoin liquidity on the chain for that, and I mean, Plasma still has the second largest Aave instance, for example, after mainnet, and so I think we've done quite well at that, and are now kind of just in the process of productizing all of that. But DeFi is a means to an end, where you don't build kind of a large DeFi ecosystem as this is not a goal in and of itself, but I think that is kind of just a baseline that then unlocks kind of many things around it, so I think that is we now have this ecosystem, and then now we need to use it productively, basically.
That makes sense. I want to get to that productizing bit, but before that, so I think around 3 weeks now since you guys have launched. What would you have done differently, or what would you have wished you had known before you had launched?
Sure. I mean, I think there's so many variables in this that are ultimately not fully within your control, right? Well, Trump tweets about tariffs, and all of a sudden, kind of every altcoin. I mean, Sui was down 85% intraday, and so I think we probably would have done things differently had we known kind of the landscape we launch into, and so I think that's very easy to say kind of ex post, and so I don't know. I think overall on I'm knocking on wood, but chain has been incredibly stable, and we had our kind of first true stress test obviously on Friday, with just incredible demand to send transactions and to move collateral around, and everything went flawless. Again, knocking on wood here, but that's actually been very, very gratifying. I wish we didn't have this stress test quite as quickly. Like you never want to be in a position to have the stress test basically. But if you have it, it's better to pass it than to not pass it.
Definitely. And with the product, I assume that's Plasma One, right? Like that's what you guys are building the entire DeFi backend for.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a bit about what you want Plasma One to look like and how you want it to interact with the DeFi?
Yeah. I think really the high level thesis and conviction on our side is stablecoins are this incredibly nascent, like emerging economy, basically. And no one has kind of truly productized that economy well, in my opinion, where you still, and like, we've all spent time in these places where you go to El Salvador and Turkey and Dubai, UAE as a massive stablecoin economy. And stablecoins are really kind of something that has emerged in the last 4 or 5 years at meaningful scale. And you can see that in a massive way, where like you have these kind of stitched together, convoluted things to actually interact with them. And I mean, we talk about this on Twitter, and it's a bit of a meme. I do truly believe that the stablecoins are like money 2.0 and are basically kind of the next iteration of money. But that requires kind of productizing the usage of that money 2.0 extremely well. And that is kind of the underlying thesis to Plasma One, where I don't think anyone has really figured out a way to do that. I know it's not going to be Deutsche Bank or JP Morgan, who are very good at what they do, but like they won't win the kind of stablecoin, like productizing stablecoins for actual kind of end consumers. And Plasma One is our product that is built to basically, how do you, the value proposition of stablecoins is incredibly clear, and like I don't think I have to like do the whole like this is why stablecoins are value and are interesting. I mean, you have a very crypto native audience, right? But I think that to an extent hasn't really been unlocked in kind of a truly kind of distributed and well functioning way. And Plasma One is that basically productized stablecoins that are actually usable in kind of the real economy.
I think that makes sense. With Plasma One, I don't really understand how the go-to-market works on your end, specifically in terms of like banking licenses. It must be a mess to deal with, like going to these payment providers in countries like El Salvador, Turkey, etc. How are you guys, I guess, how much time are you spending building these relationships? How much time had you already spent? And what is like a realistic timeline for, I know you probably don't have an engineering work always lasts a bit longer than it should, and you never know, but when can people expect Plasma One?
At the end of this year. I mean, we're doing a bit of a stage rollout for it. And you touch on a good point, where like obviously payments is a like highly jurisdiction specific and complex business to build. For us, it's always been clear that like Plasma One is basically the kind of poster child distribution wedge customer of like, this is what kind of the new economy of payment systems looks like. And so for us, that means we're very focused on kind of doing it in the proper way. Like it's very like you can go out and just like work with someone who just does the entire kind of payments backend. And that is not the approach we're taking. We're very kind of aggressively both acquiring regulated entities that allow us to onboard users directly there, building out a compliance function in the Netherlands now, and kind of getting the licenses in the kind of appropriate jurisdictions. And it's interesting because like, some of those businesses are like standalone, not actually all that interesting, but as a kind of puzzle piece in the larger puzzle that is like Plasma and Plasma One, they have incredible kind of strategic value for us. And then so for us, it's been about how do we kind of verticalize as aggressively as we can and as quickly as we can into kind of owning this entire like stablecoin payment vertical basically. And there's a lot of things we're working on that. And I'm genuinely excited for Plasma One as a consumer. Like I'm going to be the biggest kind of fan of using the product. I think the entire team is looking forward to using it too. And I think it's very gratifying to work on something that's very real. Like it's very like it's you can touch it. Like it's very fun to build.
No, I can imagine. I'm also very excited for it. I signed up for the waitlist. One thing I've been thinking about is, to me, Plasma One seems more like a crypto native product, and I guess your integration with centralized exchanges is more of like a emerging markets product. Do you think this like viewpoint makes sense?
I think to an extent, stablecoin payments are a crypto native phenomenon right now. I think if you have like a very honest look of like where does stablecoin flow actually happen now, it is overwhelmingly just dominated by centralized exchanges, right? And actually, interestingly, I mean, obviously the big ones are incredibly dominant, the Binances and OKXs and Bybits, and we have the pleasure of working with all of them. But you then also have a like very, very wide network of local players in that. But like today we partnered with BitCup, and they have extremely high market share in Thailand. And most of the kind of stablecoin crypto economy in Thailand is kind of routed through BitCup. And so for us, it's very much about like, how do we go to like the key jurisdictions and partner with the kind of largest and most relevant players to kind of truly distribute kind of the Plasma USDT rails everywhere, and also kind of have direct access to users.
This episode is sponsored by Katana. Katana is an L2 built for DeFi and is pioneering the ecosystem category of Productive TVL, believing that change should be graded on how efficiently assets are put to work in DeFi rather than just total value locked. From now until the end of November, users that bridge the Katana can earn boosted yield from CAT incentive campaigns, added VaultBridge yield, and other chain revenue. Follow the link in today's show notes to get started. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk. Terms and conditions apply. Do your own research.
I wanted to bring it back to the DeFi side for 1 second. So you guys, mainly the stablecoins on Plasma are USDT. We see some USDE. How many more stablecoins do you expect to onboard onto Plasma? What is the... Because you guys are not shy about being very pro-Tether, but from what I remember, you were also saying this is for everybody. We just want as many stablecoins as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have 13 or 14 different stablecoins on the chain right now. I'm a strong believer in a kind of multi-stablecoin world. And I mean, it's very top-heavy, obviously, right? But like, as soon as you drop out of the like top 4 or 5, they become quite small, actually. Which makes a ton of sense, right? Because like liquidity begets liquidity, and a larger, more liquid stablecoin is a better product as a function of being larger, basically. And so I do think stablecoins are going to stay quite top heavy, and USDT I think is kind of a very logical place to be focused, given how much of the kind of global kind of non-US payment flow they kind of truly command. I don't think that changes, but I think for us, like we do have, like we work with a lot of different stablecoins, and we're keen to work with anyone.
Perfect. One thing I've been thinking about is USD is the most dominant stablecoin, like the dollar stablecoins. How is are you guys looking to onboard like Euro, the pound, Lira? Is this something that you're actively working towards, especially with Plasma One? I assume there's going to be like conversion in app.
Yeah. I think actually Lira is a really interesting one. I mean, we work very closely with B-Lira, which is a kind of exchange and stablecoin issuer in Turkey.
Yeah.
And they have a TRY stablecoin that we now have on Plasma too. I think it matters a lot for the kind of both first and last mile, especially on the payment side of things, where people that want to use stablecoins but have local currency need some way to obviously get into like on the both on ramp and off ramp. I think like local currency stablecoins play a massive role. I do think that USD dominance probably goes down, because I mean it's 99% right now. I was talking to Rob Haddock actually yesterday on the panel, and I'm quoting him here. 68% of all kind of global trade is settled in USD, and so I do think that stablecoins are still going to have a higher share of USD denomination, just given because so much of the value proposition of stablecoins is just access to USD.
Yeah,
and like you like. If you are in an economy that has unpredictable central banking and high inflation, the reason to like use USD stablecoins is like you want access to USD, and that's the most liquid and easiest way to do that. And so I do think USD stablecoins stay extremely dominant.
That makes sense. In terms of DeFi, a large portion of Plasma is lending and vaults, which seem natural given that it's a stablecoin ecosystem. Are you guys planning on onboarding more DEXs, more perps platforms? What is developing the DeFi side of Plasma look like?
Sure. I mean, we've been unusually opinionated on that, I think, as a chain, and that's a choice I'm personally happy with. I mean, I would much rather work with Aave than with Compound Fork, because like they're just more capable and very good, and they like can do this at scale, and so you like I feel much better having money in Aave than having money in
me too.
Like some like L2 ecosystems forked whatever lending protocol, and so I think that choice has made a lot of sense, and we will kind of continue doubling down on that. Obviously, I think for us, like step one was getting the basics right, where especially in kind of this kind of larger complex system of kind of having a stable economy, a stablecoin economy. I think lending is a very, very central part of that, just for capital efficiency reasons and for yield generation. You have demand for borrow, and so for us, really the initial goal has been how do we bootstrap that system very, very quickly. But then also how do we like basically make the demand for that organic over time, right? We're like we incentivize pretty heavily. We're now tapering that pretty aggressively, just because we like needed that kickstart to kind of really have capital move. Like there is no, like the delta for us right now in having 10 billion versus 15 billion in the Aave instance is pretty marginal. So it's also about kind of being thoughtful on how do you design incentives basically that you can then very quickly transition into like how do you want to incentivize as little as needed basically, but you still want to incentivize sufficiently to kind of really achieve the goal you set out to achieve. And so when you mentioned meeting River, who was fantastic and incredibly sharp, and we've had very, very long discussions on kind of the complexities in managing that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Incentives are very, very difficult, especially because you're trying to move stablecoins, which wants to stay where it wants to be as safe as possible, to a new chain. But I think Aave probably helped with that as well, because people can trust Aave. They can trust
100%.
Yeah,
I feel much better having my money in Aave than having it elsewhere.
Yeah. One more thing that I know you guys are working on is pBTC. Do you want to kind of talk a bit about why you guys want to launch your own native version of Bitcoin for your chain?
Sure. I do think there's incredible demand to save in Bitcoin but spend in USD denominated assets, and wrap Bitcoin is flawed for like a very long list of reasons. I don't think I'm like this is obviously a very biased view of this. I do think that is pretty widely shared, and I don't think anyone has truly kind of built a fantastic version of a like native Bitcoin that is on an EVM chain and that is kind of highly composable and can be kind of used productively. I think that is a massive unlock for us, and so that is something we're kind of building right now, just to kind of figure out how do we, I think also from a savings and payments angle, there is just demand to save in Bitcoin, right? But I don't think anyone wants to spend in Bitcoin.
No, definitely not.
Just looking at the data, that seems like very, very evident that like there's zero demand for people to truly kind of spend Bitcoin at scale. They want to spend USD, and so it's about like how do you marry those two realities?
And that'll be Plasma One, I assume you're gonna.
But like Plasma One is going to be a component of that, yes.
One more thing is the USDT free transfers. I remember last time we chatted, you said it is a very complex thing to solve. How are you guys approaching it now? When will it go live?
It is actually live.
Okay.
It's we have it on our dashboard, and we now we have a bunch of payment partners we're integrating into that. actually worked extremely well. I mean, it's really hidden away right now. We've done 150 million in transfers on it now. That order of I haven't checked in a couple of days. But that kind of scale, and especially on the payment partner side of things, where you do have a lot of those entities that just facilitates so much payment flow, and we're onboarding a bunch of them onto kind of that product feature now, and that has been that's been a very easy sell, actually to them, which is great to see.
How do you think about? Because to me, Plasma seems kind of like a two-pronged chain. Like you have stablecoin DeFi, and then stablecoin transfers. How do you think about balancing those two? Like, is there something that do you have separate teams working on separate sides, or is it like your main goal is to just combine these two eventually?
I think it's two subcategories of like the same thing, right? But it's like, how do you build the kind of largest network for stablecoins? And I think that like just needs to involve both, right? Where you need sticky capital on one side, and then you do want velocity at the same time as well. And so those are not separate teams. I think this is like one kind of, like in the end, those two obviously do impact each other. And so you can't really view them in isolation. And so I do think those are highly connected, and then I kind of one and the same goal, which is just building a stablecoin economy.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Last question. Going forward, let's look over the next 6 to 12 months. First thing is, for Plasma, what should everybody expect? What are you most excited about on your personal, as well as like what should people look forward to? The second thing is, whole conference is basically about tokenization and stablecoins. What have you realized, or like what is your hot take or big prediction over the next year about like tokenization, stablecoins? What do you think does very well? What do you think doesn't do very well?
Yeah, I think I have many hot takes. Some of which are probably not in my interest to publicly state. But in terms of like what to look forward to, I think we do have a lot to prove. I think we're in a very good spot where we do have a lot of the kind of USDT flow, and specifically going the net new flow, because we do see a lot of that kind of just happening on Plasma now. We will continue pushing that extremely aggressively. I do think that there is like the Plasma One rollout, and that is deeply exciting to me, and I think that is going to be a fantastic product, and we have a lot of. When you mentioned that, like we've been very busy the last couple of weeks, I don't plan on taking vacation.
Very good, very good. Hot take prediction.
Hot take.
Doesn't have to
I
be
think
too
basically
hot.
no one understands stablecoins. Even a lot of people who talk about stablecoins as a living. I think people like stablecoins isn't one product. I think stablecoins are probably 4 somewhat separate products, really. And I think people don't like. I think that is an underappreciated fact, where people always kind of lump a lot of things that are wildly different into one category, because they like generally trade at $1, and I think that is not discussed enough.
Okay, very good. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. This was a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Shout out to today's sponsor, Katana. Katana is an L2 built for DeFi and is pioneering the ecosystem category of Productive TVL. In just 2 months, Katana has surpassed 500 million in TVL, with over 90% of that TVL being productive in ecosystem apps like Sushi and Morpho. From now until the end of November, users that bridge to Katana can earn boosted yield from CAT incentive campaigns, added VaultBridge yield, and other chain revenue. Follow the link in today's show notes to get started. AI is fragmented. Every team is scrambling to pick, swap, and manage LLM models that can't keep up. Allora changes that. Instead of choosing models, you set your goal, and Allora unites AIs into one smarter system. The result? A new AI standard. Predictive intelligence that adapts in real time, outperforms any single model, and gets better as more people contribute. From powering DeFi strategies to next-gen AI agents, Allora is the intelligence layer of the future. Learn more at X, @Allora Network. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk. Terms and conditions apply. Do your own research.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to 0x Research. Today, now I'm joined by Guy from Ethena. Guy, how are you doing?
I'm all right. Yourself?
Very good. As well as David.
I'll say, I don't get
and
it.
Carolina. Yes, thank you guys
Thank you.
for joining.
Thank you.
Guy, very busy weekend and a very busy Friday. What did you guys see on your end with all of the volatility across markets?
Yeah, I was actually stuck on a flight coming back from New York with Wi-Fi that was cutting in and out, which was not the funnest experience I've ever been through. Yeah, I'm not sure where to start. I think it was just obviously pretty insane. The scale, speed, depth of how everything sort of collapsed. I think pretty eye-opening experience, I think, for me, where I thought alts just generally had a bit more liquidity than it appeared, and it just felt like the floor sort of like fell beneath the entire market. So I do have some concerns, like longer-term ramifications. Does anyone sort of in TradFi look at this market now and think it's like an investable space when the floor can just fall below your feet and like minus 60, minus 80% in 5 minutes? So I think there's going to be a slow sort of rebuilding, trust building exercise that we need to go through sort of an entire space. So yeah, sounds like a pretty negative comment, but it was a pretty eye-opening, I think, experience.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up is we talked about this last time you were on the pod. Hard-coded $1. I think you were kind of proven right? What would you say on the Friday thing?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, we obviously don't set the oracles on Aave ourselves. We did support that idea. I think the basic idea, and I put a thread out on this on Twitter this week, was kind of, you're really asking a question of what are we trying to solve for with oracles, which is a temporary dislocation in price. Are you scared about that, or are you scared about a permanent impairment behind the collateral? And I think the point that I was making was that actually, in most scenarios, you're wanting to actually just stop people getting liquidated for an unnecessary reason, which is actually what DeFi achieved, I think, in the last weekend. But then you can always have something that actually flips to like a proof of reserves, which is saying we demand Ethena to prove like how much is actually sitting within the collateral, and if there is actually a full impairment, then you can adjust the oracle to reflect that. So it's one piece that I think Chaos Labs is doing pretty good job on, which is actually allowing that toggle to exist. And I think that's sort of direction where we need to go with these things. Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Do you guys have anything you want to add? Since they're the risk people, I'm less risky.
Less risky. No, I just wanted to add that actually it would also probably be fine on-chain. Ethena's price, SE's price was pretty good, and it would still probably have holding up.
Yeah, I think that was one piece of misinformation spreading around the market, which is like, if Aave hadn't done this, DeFi was a zero. Actually, Aave was completely fine. Like, it literally depegged less than USDC did in Curve, with nine figures of liquidity sitting in there. So even if Aave had just tracked the Curve price sitting in there, nothing would have happened on chain.
I do think that, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know better than me, but I think Chaos Labs had also mentioned that currently they obviously have the POR or Oracle, but that's not embedded into Aave's infrastructure. But I do think that they're planning on iterating on the current Oracle infrastructure. So it's no longer hard pegged to one, but it actually will be, primarily using the POR and then maybe have a fallback mechanism after that. So that is...
Yeah, that's correct. I think you should sort of view this hard coding piece as more like a
temporary
stopgap, temporary thing with the view of getting towards proof of reserves. And in many senses, I think that's where every single RWA asset issuer who's doing anything which isn't fully 100%. Verifiable on chain, you need some sort of verification method for proof of reserves.
How do you, like, during this 10 Sigma event, like, obviously you guys handed over $2 billion redemptions within like a 36 hour period, which is obviously really impressive. Was there anything that you were not, obviously didn't expect the event to happen, but was there anything that I guess happened that you maybe weren't expecting given the ramifications of like all that kind of unfoiled on Friday?
Yeah, I think it was just kind of market structure breaking down on venue specific places.
Sure.
So there's obviously pretty wide dislocations in pricing between Curve and then a bunch of different exchanges that sat around it.
Yeah.
I think that's one piece that we just want to work with different platforms that we're working with now to actually just make sure have we actually aligned with the right Oracle decision here, because at the moment everyone's actually applying something that's slightly different across every venue.
Right.
So I think that the disparity that we saw, like dispersion between different venues, was a pretty shocking thing to see, and you kind of see it in the data as well. But yeah, I think from our perspective, people sort of forget a little bit that actually Ethena is pretty well positioned going into these events, because when people are getting liquidated, the perps tend to trade at a massive discount to spot. And so in many senses, the only thing that we're actually doing when the market is imploding is just trying to close those positions as quickly as possible to capture P&L. And it's just, I don't know, people freak out every time the market crashes, and we're sort of sitting there on our side going like, we're actually in a better position than we were in yesterday while it's happening. But it's, I guess, the trigger that...
One thing I wanted to bring up is I'm noticing more and more that you guys are getting the white labeled stablecoins, like the Mega ETH one was one, with Jupiter as well, if I'm not mistaken. Is this something that you're going to be more and more focused on going forward, like with I guess fiat backed stablecoins launching over different protocols and chains?
Yeah, for sure. I think the week where we came out with Mega ETH USDM, and that was the week that coincided with Hyperliquid's USDH proposal. I do think that there was a very sort of a shift in like the Overton window for the industry on that week, where everyone sort of woke up and said, if we have distribution, if we have users on our platform, how are we not thinking about sort of trying to capture some of this value? And I think that there's been a very noticeable shift as well. I think even with like infrastructure projects now, when everyone's focusing on the revenue meta, which obviously isn't the meta, it's just kind of like it's
Capitalism.
Corporate finance. But the revenue meta itself, chains are sort of asking the question of like, what happens when MEV as a percentage of like transaction volumes is like trending towards zero? What else can we do to actually generate revenue as a layer of infrastructure? And the easiest answer is like, if you've got billions of dollars of stablecoins, there's 9 figures of interest income that's actually sitting within those balances. So what I can say is like, we really only launched this product 2.5 weeks ago. We've got Mega ETH, Sui, Jupiter, and I'd say 4 of a similar level coming out within the next sort of 2 to 3 weeks. I honestly think within the next month, you'll have 50% of every single app, wallet, and chain producing one of these in the market. It was probably the busiest 2 weeks we've ever had in terms of like inbound BDs after that whole Hyperliquid proposal. Yeah. I think there is a question of like, is this the correct user outcome? Because like, do we really want 1,000 stablecoins with like everyone's got their own little branded thing? Creates friction, it creates all these different pieces that are suboptimal. But unfortunately, I think that is where we're going. I say unfortunate for like the user's perspective, because we like, I think the great thing, the real outcome that everyone wants here is actually we all just agree on one token and you share the economics with everyone basically. But unfortunately, I think people's sort of egos and own economic interests drive us away from that outcome.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Can I actually lean on?
Please.
What do you think this means? Like, what's the long-term implications for Athena's business model with like the stablecoin as a service offering? In terms of like
just
value
enhances
capture,
our distribution. We make slightly more on the stablecoins as a service than we do on just USD and USDTB. And you can really think about it as, if a project is starting with USDTB within the white label offering, they've always got the option to switch to USDE in the back end if they want to. And the view that we have is that people will start with USDTB, which is obviously lower margin to start with, but as interest rates start to decline and everyone gets more comfortable with us as a partner, they go, okay, well, maybe I can get 10 instead of 3 in a year's time. And so really it's a way of us distributing USDE in a more phased process. But yeah, we make more money on those products than we do on like the underlying themselves. And so it's I wouldn't sort of say it as like us disrupting ourselves. It's more us really undercutting the margins of competitors.
Makes sense.
One last thing I wanted to ask is about HIP free. Is that something that you guys are focused on, like Hyperliquid integrations?
Yeah, I think we spoke about it publicly within that USDH proposal. There is going to be a front end that's launched with USDE collateral redenominating the whole exchange. I think from my perspective, that's 2 of like the killer products within crypto jammed together in the same place, which is like dollar worth of return plus perps trading. And when you put them together, it's a pretty cool user experience. So there is a team that's picking that up and building a front end there. And obviously HIP3 came out yesterday, so should be pretty soon. Yeah.
Very good. Do you want to ask something?
Yeah, just I had a question, and we were talking about money, making money with the underlying. I feel like there has been a shift. Like right now, there's a lot of liquid stable backing in USD. Is that like a broader move to have like backing assets on chain, or is it just like it's just happened because yield is better there?
Yeah, it was just a rate driven decision. I think the market's been in a funny place. I think in the last 6 months, where you have a bit of a spot driven rally with like Tom Lee and Saylor buying. And then everyone's like, all right, they've stopped buying. So then the market crashes. And it's just this sort of like endless loop where I think no one has the confidence to be fully levered long in the same way that they were when Trump was sort of coming in Q4 last year. That's kind of like the perfect scenario, which is everyone saw this sort of great tailwind that was there, which is like Trump's coming in and there's going to be deregulation, all these different pieces. Let's front run those spot flows via derivatives and we could sort of like benefit from that. It's almost been the opposite now, which is like sporadic spot flows come into the market. Everyone's like, all right, well, when this runs out, do I really want to be long ETH above 5K? Like, I'm not so sure about that. It just makes that a challenging environment for a consistently like frothy rate environment within perps. So if we had capacity to do 15 bill, which is where we were sitting last week in perps, I'd like to be 95% in perps, but the market didn't have capacity for that. At the moment. Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think that makes sense. Guy, last question. Next 6 to 12 months, what are you most looking forward to within crypto?
Within crypto?
Yeah. Or anything. It can be personal as well if you want.
Athena going to 100 billion USD.
Sorry, I thought you meant Ethena versus crypto. That's a lot. I think equity perps are probably the most exciting product that isn't scaled, but is like the opportunity size is like bigger than the market cap of Robinhood. I think it might be. So I think someone's going to make a incredible business out of something attached to that, and I think it just feels like one of the most obvious opportunities where retail flow on options doesn't really make sense as like the instrument of choice to express leverage. They're not really there to price a Greek or price vol. They just want leverage, and I think crypto has shown that people prefer perps over options when you give them the choice. So you've got a asset base which is 30 times the size of crypto, i.e. US equities, and a superior instrument, we think. And I think someone's going to do very well in that space. Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like I guess briefly, have you guys shifted your attention towards like this white label stablecoin service product, and also maybe like the HIP3? Maybe it's a separate team that's building the Athena-based Hyperliquid market. But any thoughts on what's going on with Converge? Is that taking a step back? Are you guys?
Yeah, I'd say slightly deprioritized versus the things that we've been talking through here.
You have a lot going on, so I get that.
Yeah, and slightly small lean team, and I think there's obviously been a lot going on with DATs. I even think DATs as a potential consumer of our product is also an interesting avenue, which we haven't spoken about as much, which is a lot of these DATs are going to be competing on the axes of how much money can we raise from TradFi to deploy into stuff like USD on chain. There's a bunch of them who are beginning to work with us now. And I think that that's actually one of the most interesting conduits for TradFi money to actually come in at scale on chain, because it's almost like an open-ended format where they're just like, here's my money, go and take as much risk as you can to like generate return.
Yeah.
It's kind of what the mandate of most of these things are. And so I think for the first time, you could have like real connective tissue from TradFi into DeFi at mega scale. And this is kind of like, we got the perfect product basically for them to come into there. So I think, they're changing sort of priorities through time. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Guy, thank you so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. Okay.